Welcome to the first season of conventioNOT, an assembly of thoughts between Mike and Ryan and our guests, who are also in pursuit of happiness and have found a little bit of success along the way. We don't take ourselves too seriously, and we hope you'll stick around for a while. You can find this on any of the major podcast networks, including Apple and Google Play. Please subscribe.
Have you ever taken a personality test?
I took something at a company I used to work at that was, At the time, I thought it was like super like hip, novel thing that companies were doing to like get to know you more. I guess in hindsight, it actually was pretty productive. And it was more of like an evaluation of how your personality affects how you handle different challenges. So I think it kind of was something like this, because it wasn't just how you are as a person, like in your general life. It was like how you tackle things. I wish I could remember, and I have a smirk on my face because we were an office full of cynical people that were often being subjected to some more new age things. So it was just, it's a bunch of male engineers sitting around being told that like our feelings are important, and it was always very educational.
Do you remember what your result was? Do you remember if you were type A, type B, type C, type D?
It wasn't that simple. And I think that it wasn't that ordinal or black and white by any means. And that was the frustrating process, is at the end, it told us measure things with butterflies and stuff like that. And it was just like, what? That's not any use. I mean, what the fuck? But in theory, it actually was, because the goal was to find out who you could work best with, your strengths offsetting others' weaknesses. In other words, you can't put 3 people that just jump into things on a 4-person team. Maybe 2 people on that team are fine, but you need a couple planners, you need a couple and it was more identifying you as that type of personality.
One of the things that I have done for more than a decade, it's probably 12 years now, is every business that I've worked at and every team that I've worked with, I have encouraged or insisted, depending on what the situation is, that they take one of these Carl Jung or Briggs-Myers tests. One of the ways that I learned to encourage people is by using these personalities tests. They used to all be paid for back in the day, a decade ago when we first started using them on the internet, but now there's so many free ones, and all of them are based on the Briggs-Myers testing, which is, like you said, like it's XY axis testing, and then it basically boils you down into a certain personality type. The basis of the typology testing is in between these 16 personality types.
Gotcha.
The deal is that you're made up of 4 different personality components, regardless of who you are. And it's your extrovertedness, your sensingness, your thinkingness, or your judging. And each of these, oh my gosh, there's probably 100 extrapolations of this test over the past 20 years or so. But they all tie back to this 4-pillar type solution. What I like to do, honestly, is to encourage people to find out and be open enough with each other to learn each other's personalities, so that they're vulnerable enough to start from day one talking about the things that need to be talked about to solve the problems in their job. Again, I like to set the stage for people to really get into the ring, and sometimes that has burned me and sometimes that has helped me. But using personality tests is definitely something that I have done to do.
I'm sorry. I'm so hung up. I got to figure out what the name of the thing that I was involved in was. It was such a source of entertainment and information. But just further to what you're saying, I think knowing, even just you having that general kind of, I butchered consideration to death earlier in our talk, but that as part of your style is unique. Again, I don't know, maybe it's unique because of the fields that we're in. Drastically different. I know we're both consultants, but truth of the matter is I'm a consultant in the engineering discipline, and I work with the legal and insurance world. So I feel like sometimes a lot of these sorts of things, because you come from a sales background, you come from a marketing background, you come from a world where there is interpersonal aspects, I think, are absolutely crucial and fundamental. Where I come from a world that is at least misinterpreted is thinking that the subjective isn't as important as the objective. You know what I mean? Like, and again, I'm not judging, and this may be like really stereotyping.
I don't think that's stereotypical. I think that what these things do is apply objectivity to subjective fields.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, by definition, that's what they are, right?
That's interested me from the time that I learned to lead people. I would say probably from the time I learned to lead people professionally.
It's funny though, because you're bringing objectivity into a somewhat subjective world.
I have
which
to.
is a great thing. And I think what I'm saying is conversely, I think there should be a lot more attention in my world, which is a little too quantifiable and objective based. There should be a lot more consideration to the subjective and the soft skills and, EQ versus IQ.
I have to bring objectivity into the setting because honestly, and a lot of times I might not understand the emotion that the person is having subjectively. And so it's taken me some time to develop that part of emotional intelligence in my career because I've always seen a lot of people cry at work or like be upset and angry and yell at work, or my like personal experience in life. I can be a little bit dense when it comes to reading emotions. And that has kind of like driven me to figure out how to understand a little bit more of the like objective parts of personality. So when I experience somebody and I've got some real problems with them, I'll always think about these different 4 different personality quadrants. And again, I've seen a million different definitions of them. One of the ones I like to use, I'll announce for anybody who's listening, is 16personalities.com. It's a free one, which is pretty cool. I'm sure that they have some kind of pay for services, but take it and see how accurate it is, and ask the people that you either work with or maybe conflict with that you can't figure out, and see how accurate it is. I think that in most cases, these tests are accurate. They use the Briggs-Myers test to try to rank the athletes that come through the NFL draft. And I think most of the other combines use some of these methods before they pull kids into the professional leagues, whether it be NBA or Major League or soccer, which I know very little about. I'm sure that when they make decisions in the front office across all those leagues, when they make those calls to recruit guys or to trade guys, that they evaluate their social media value.
Well, they have to now. I mean, to me, one of the most interesting things, one of the sadder things you'll see in terms of like just a society response to something is just prior to the NFL draft. For some reason, it's a bigger deal with the NFL draft. I think probably just numbers wise, right? In the NFL, we're talking those rosters are 50 plus players, 32 teams. So the draft is what, 8-9 rounds?
Yes.
In any event, what I was getting at is right before the draft, stuff always comes out about these guys' Twitter accounts, about these guys' Instagram accounts. And it's usually stuff from like when they were in high school. And it comes out at that time for very specific, oftentimes strategic reasons. There's been a couple instances in the past couple of years where it was suggested that it was actually other teams with interest in drafting players who released information in the hopes that that information would cause this player to slide to them.
Really?
Yeah, look up a guy named Laramie Tunsil, Tunsil. That photograph in the upper right-hand corner of him hitting a bong with a gas mask, it came out less than 2 hours before, I want to say, the 2016 or 2017 draft, where he was like a projected top 5 pick. And I'm not saying that, there's ever been any confirmation that Miami had anything to do with the release of it, but he basically ended up sliding to like 15 or 16. So it was an enormous, like, wait a minute. Is there any way that this could have been done strategically to, because he's a stud. Like, he's been a starter since day one. And also has done absolutely nothing but good things on and off the field. And like,
so he's a good guy.
Yeah, but
what about the Confederate flag in the background with the weeds?
Well, not to even respond to that in any way, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's some weird Ole Miss flag.
It's Ole Miss. Okay, yeah, that might.
Yeah, we just say okay, like it's a Confederate flag, but it's Mississippi. Oh, okay, whatever. Like, I don't even know what that means. Why we both just said,
Things are different in the South, Mike. Things are different. Things are different in the South, and especially in some of those western, southern states, right down there. And so it just is what it is. I think that maybe we shouldn't like fire up so much about that Confederate flag. It means something completely different to my friends here than it does to my Yankee friends.
Yeah,
but in Atlanta, it's not acceptable.
No.
You know, but in Birmingham, Alabama, which Alabama's a shit show, it is acceptable.
Yeah, and I mean, I would say, yeah, acceptance is to each his own. Because a Confederate flag in Michigan, it means something. I don't think it's acceptable what it means.
It's different. It's really different.
Yeah, like it's just one of those things where if you're going to express that, you have to accept that hey man, I get how what you feel about it may not necessarily be treading on me or nefarious or negative in any way.
Right.
But you have to be understanding that there may be some other interpretations of what you're projecting, right? Like, you don't have to, but I think that's a considerate way to go about life.
Right.
I was at a get-together recently where there was a theme, and the theme was captain, but it was a buddy's 40th birthday party, and his lovely fiance had the incredible idea my buddy he's a captain. He's a professional fisherman, and that's how he makes a living. He's a great guy. We're all getting together for his birthday, and naturally a lot of his friends are also boat captains and fishermen and whatnot. So his fiance said, birthday party, we're meeting at, this spot. You have to come dressed as a captain. So right away, I think everyone's like, oh yeah, boat captain, whatever. But she was like, don't just come dressed as yourself. Like, that's not cool. So good on her. She was clear though, like, come dressed up. I share this with Nicole, and within like 30 seconds, Nicole pulls up a picture of Captain and Tennille. Well, Captain and Tennille sing, Love Will Keep Us Together. I don't even know if they're like 70s or 80s. They look 70s-ish. But, she pulls up a picture and it's just comedy. They're funny as hell. He's always rocking like a turtleneck and a captain's hat and like shirts that say captain on it, like just a clown. So naturally I go as him and she goes as Tennille.
I think I saw this on social media.
I shared a picture of it. So yeah, they did an album where on the cover of the album, they're both holding English bulldogs. So we recreated the album cover with Whaler, our French bulldog, and then a pillow of a French bulldog that we have.
As a matter of fact, Mike might not know this right now, but it's probably the episode cover of the show.
I don't need to talk about some of the comments I got that night, but let's just say if you're going to go out dressed like that, you should be prepared for what you're going to get. Anyways, to segue, the reason why I brought this story up, we were talking about just consideration in public spaces, which is a very wide-ranging topic, but I go to this captain's party, and there's a couple of people wearing a hat that, to me, immediately I recognize as a I don't want to be overly descriptive because I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. Because in this instance, I have no doubt. I don't think anything was intended. Long story short, if you Google SS Army uniforms, you'll see this is part of the common garb. The light gray captains. Yeah. So I
don't know where this is headed.
No, these were the hats. A couple people were rocking these hats. And they weren't wearing the rest of the costume or nothing. But
oh man,
I'm like looking around going, is any that's not appropriate. Like where I'm from, that is not appropriate. I don't think anybody meant any offense. Right? Am I sensitive?
I think it's weird to me. I'm sensitive because I'm trying to be very pro equality, and I'm also intrigued by the way that bigotry or racism or whichever one you want to call or apply to it affects people. But I don't think it's that weird. I think it's just a regional thing. I mean, in some areas, it's cool to rock a SS Army uniform.
But in this case, to be clear, I think he probably, I bet if you Google captain's hat, maybe this will come up. And I'll be honest, dude, yeah,
did you mention it?
To me, you need to connect the dots, between a World War II German hat and what that may mean.
You gotta at least Google it, right?
I don't know. Maybe that's putting too much onto people.
We might be making another argument for Google Science, I guess.
I actually kind of made a couple comedic comments to maybe one or two of my friends there, and they all said, "Wait a minute, is that hat what I think it means?" I'm like, I don't know, but I think that's what it looks like too. And they're like, "Yeah, no, you. I'm glad you didn't decide to wear that hat, Mike."
You were much better off to have dressed like one of the village people than to show up wearing.
Every time I go dressed as anyone, I look like a fucking village person, dude. A couple years ago, we went as Ike and Tina. Total village person. Me with just a leather vest on and a small afro and a mustache. I guess I had it coming.
Hey, you're always talking about how to get better engaged with the conventioNOT Instagram account at conventioNOT_podcast. This, at any point in time, you could share you dressed as Ike and or Tina or any other costume bearing thing. How do you end up getting invited to so many costume parties?
I don't know. I'm blessed. I'm really fortunate. The Ike and Tina was that was probably a decade ago. That was when we first moved to Toronto. And Nicole and I have a tendency to, when we're in a new environment, to completely be willing to just expose ourselves. And I know that sounded kind of vulgar, but I meant just be open, to the new experience that is. And we had moved to Toronto probably 6 months before this. Kind of had some good friends right away, and they invited us to their annual Halloween party, which again, at this point, I'm doing my best to pretend I'm a grown-up. I'm in my late 20s. I just gotten a real job in a new country. And all these grown-ups, other people who had the job for longer than I did, invite me to this costume party. And we go to it. And it was a fucking shit show. It was so much fun. And I learned that, okay, this is cool. Being a little bit older and just giving less of a fuck is actually a lot more enjoyable than, trying to be cool in college and, all that other stuff I was doing growing up. Another guy and his wife went as Jem and the holograms. It was just hilarious. And then, yeah, at 1 a.m, the CEO of our company showed up at the party. And he's in his mid 40s. He fucking shows up. Him and his wife are dressed as, she's wearing her a homecoming prom dress. and he's got like a leather jacket and a wig on. He's dressed as like David Hasselhoff from Knight Rider.
Oh man.
It was epic, man. It was so incredible. Costume parties they're almost always a good time.
We're going to a champagne and croquet party over the Memorial Day weekend.
Fuck. Well, I guess you could dress up as someone fancy.
I was thinking about dressing in all white. I don't know if I'm going to wear
That's what I mean. And just dressing it in something out of your element that you're like kind of okay to like, does this look good versus
Right.
does this look like the costume I want to present today? Like, and yeah, you can pretend you're going to some white party in the Hamptons.
I love linen. I'm not going to lie, you know.
Yeah, but you can't really get away with wearing linen pants, bro. You don't live in Cuba. At this, you can. At this,
I have a reason to get new linen pants. I'm not awesome with white. I'm not going to lie about that. Maybe I could find like linen pant, linen shirt matching set, kind of like a little chino situation.
Ooh.
That might be what I'm going for.
I had a tan linen that my dad had custom made over in the Middle East.
That's beautiful.
I still have it, but I haven't rocked it since the wedding. You know, like a tan linen suit doesn't get worn every day.
So you don't have linen as part of your typical short?
You know, it's a lot easier to incorporate into my wardrobe nowadays.
Yeah.
I have a few linen buttons.
Yeah. Oh, I wear the shorts so my balls don't get hot.
I like linen shorts too. I find them hard to pair with things, but they're comfortable as hell. I got to be honest. Yeah, I put a shirt on, but I'm not usually fully clothed most of the time. I'm able to get away with wearing board shorts most of my life.
I just assume everything costs $100, Mike.
I know. Because you live in a city. I remember I used to think that too.
It's true. It's true. How do you think I got to get some board shorts to match Yeezys.
No, see, that's the problem. So when you're going board shorts, you got to stop thinking about shoes and you got to start thinking about your slipper game.
Oh, my only slipper game when it comes to board shorts, I like the style episode we have going on here, is Olokai. That's Hawaiian.
There you go. No, Olokai is amazing. Not only are they Hawaiian, but they're hardcore Hawaiian. They support local Hawaiian surfers. They support local Hawaiian fishermen. I'll share an ad with you a while back. They ran an ad on my buddy who's going to hopefully be a guest of ours in the future. His name's Kaivi Berry, and he runs a cage-free shark diving tour company out here. And like him and his family have been doing it. It's a family business. And I want to say he's third generation in his family. And a while back, Olukai ran an ad that featured Kaivi and it's called Island View Hawaii. Definitely worth a check out. islandviewhawaii.com, and their Instagram is at islandviewhawaii, all one word. But yeah, Olukai ran an ad where it had their boat. And I want to say it had an action shot of Kaivi surfing, maybe too. I'm not sure, but anyways, sorry. I was just saying, I really like Olukai. They're an awesome company.
I once had a problem with Olokai, but I had a problem with their slippers one time. They discolored, and they sent me a new pair and let me keep the old pair.
There's another company, though. You should check out their slippers called Hawaiian, Hayn. Yeah. You might like their stuff too.
I'll check those out. Hey, you were talking about your friend Kaivi. The Kaivi Berry? This is probably the last episode of season 1, which was our test thing, right? I guess it says that. And you're probably accustomed to hearing that at the beginning of every episode. But you want to talk about this, the next season and where we're headed with the podcast a little bit?
Just changing things up a little bit for season 2. I think our goal here on season 1 was really just kind of an introduction, kind of both ways, share a little bit of ourselves with the audience and also kind of maybe figure some things out along the way. But when we started out, I think we had more of an external hope in that we'd be speaking more so with other people than with just one another. And the idea of the interviews is really the focus of the show. And moving forward, as we move into season 2, we're going to be sharing predominantly the interview. In other words, the back and forth between you and I, these smaller segments that we featured in season 1 mostly. I think we'll pepper those throughout the season, but I think our listeners should be expecting a much more interview-based format moving forward.
I think both of us were shocked by how many people actually download the show. But I was talking to one of our listeners locally at my office today, and she said that she thought it was pretty cool that she would be able to have opportunity to know us a little bit more by listening to the season 1 episodes. I guess that season 2 would be and will be a little bit longer from an episode standpoint, or at least on the individual episodes. When you look back at Dan Sennett's episode this year, you look back at what we put together with him, it was a little bit more of like an hour-long episode. And I know that we're going to start to put some of those episodes into the can here as we come forward and start to see how that will work with the next interviews. But I'm excited, man. I think it took a little bit of time to understand how to post podcasts.
Yeah, it's fair. I mean, it's a little more complicated than an Instagram post. A little bit more.
It is. I've learned a lot, though. You know, I think they're by far, in a way, it's taught me to talk a little bit smoother if I can, and be a little bit more thoughtful about ums and ahs, because I have to pay the price, or one of us has to pay the price to edit them out later if we don't. I guess in this kind of final episode of the season, I'm not sure what the episode number is, but I think that I sit down, and it's taken us about 6 months to record this, right? We're going to jump right into season number 2.
Yeah.
But I think in 6 months here, I've gotten a little bit of an education on audio production, which hopefully sounds pretty well, but also how to like mind what I say and to try to be a little bit more communicative with my words and a little bit more efficient with the way I speak.
Yeah, that's a learning process.
I've stopped trying to curse as a point of discussion and try to use my 4-letter or curse words a little bit more artfully as emphasis.
You're such a bitch.
If you could see the screen, he just his eyes rolled out of his head.
I mean, well, how PG are we trying to make this? At some point, you're going to say, I've stopped collaborating with Mike in hope of reaching a broader audience.
No,
you do you, brother. You do you. Nobody told me I swear too much. I mean,
no,
I do.
Not.
I swear more than you do.
We were talking about the impacts on our life. I'm not talking about the fucking podcast. I don't give a fuck about fucking on the
general
podcast. No, in general, the words that I use.
I think any form of self-evaluation is good, Ryan. And I'm proud of you, bud.